like to welcome you to BOI Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to BOI Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
Happy Friday, BOI Meets Wellness community. First off, I want to thank everyone for listening. You are what makes this work incredible. I'm so thankful for your comments, your gratitude, your affirmations of the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today's interview features Jared of Eating Enlightenment. Jared is one of the first people to actually express interest on coming on the show and sharing their platform. And I have to admit that when I was approached by Jared, I was a bit conflicted because he's a white cis man and the majority of my guests have been queer folks of color. However, after I reflected and went back to the purpose of the podcast is to share the journeys of people whose lives are born obviously incredible. And Jared has an incredible story and incredible journey. So I'm excited to welcome him to the community. Jared lived as a Zen monk for 13 months to deal with his mental health, got interested in healing therapy afterwards, has studied and immersed himself in various modalities such as yoga, meditation, responsible psychedelic use, intuitive eating, wellness coaching, and personal training. He's now currently expressing himself through writing about psychology, food, binge eating, and spirituality. So I'm excited to welcome him to the community. If you're feeling these episodes, please head over to Apple's podcast and leave us a review. Reviews support us in paying the bills and brings more visibility to the show. We appreciate your feedback. Also, if you're interested or know an incredible person who should come share their brand or story on the show that has some amazing thoughts on money, mindset, and motivation, please head over to boymeetswellness.com and just simply click the tab BMW guest and complete that contact form, and my team will follow up with you about particularly coming on the show. So thank you all for listening. I'm going to jump into the wellness tip of this week. This week's wellness tip is actually a personal shout out to myself because I'm trying to find a therapist. And one of the spots that I've been looking, which is actually a great lead for y'all, is the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. This is a space where you can search for therapists that are queer and trans people of color to work with around the United States, actually. So it's really cool is they almost have like a Google Maps search on there where you can put in your zip code and it'll show you the queer and trans folks of color who are therapists in your network, in your area, and you can connect with them. Their website is www.nqttcn.com, and I'll be sure to leave that in the show notes. This website also has several resources for, therapying yourself and healing yourself. So it's a great space. Shouts out to the founder of that, Erica Woodland, one of my amazing mentors. I really appreciate them. And if you have an opportunity and you're looking for a therapist, just head over to the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. That's where I will be looking. I'm still on the search. So y'all wish me luck in finding me a therapist, y'all. Now let's jump into this episode with Jared from Eating Enlightenment. Hello world. Welcome to BOI Meets Wellness. I'm extremely excited and very thankful for today's interview with Jared from eatingenlightenment.com. So Jared, how are you? Please introduce yourself to the BOI Meets Wellness community with your name, location, pronouns, and what brings you joy.
Awesome. Well, I'm Jared Evolve, and I am a guy, and I'm living in the Bay Area. And what brings me joy? Yesterday, I got outside finally and played some Frisbee. So that was awesome.
Nice. So when you say you're a guy, that means you go by he, him, and his, right? As far as pronouns, because I just want to make sure I get it right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. So Frisbee, that sounds fun. I was actually just telling a friend that I really want to fly a kite. Like, I don't know what about that seems so fun right now, but I think that this being in shelter in place is really calling folks to go outside. So I'm so happy that you got that Frisbee in. Do you do that often?
Yeah, you got the sunshine and you got the wind and running around a little bit and pretty easy going and stuff. Yeah. What was your question?
I was asking, do you do Frisbee often, or was this something that just kind of came to you as like a new idea?
Yeah, I hadn't been to a park in like, sadly, a long time. But some friends had an idea, like we don't have to, it's more safe and to be outside in a public space like a park, not super close to each other. And they had a frisbee, and I was like, no, I had a frisbee. I was like, I should bring something. What can I bring? And I just started scrummaging around, and I wanted to find a football, but I couldn't. And frisbee was awesome. And we had a blast just, throwing it around, and yeah, but kind of new.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'm gonna have to add that to the list of things to try. So, can you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself, what you do in the world, what pays the bills, and what feeds your soul?
Yeah. So what feeds my soul, my mission is to help people reconnect. And usually the medium I'm in is helping people reconnect in their eating experiences. So if you're struggling with eating, reconnecting to yourself can help heal and be normal with food again. And so how I pay the bills is I work at an eating disorder center right now. And then through eatingenlightenment.com, this site, let's see, about 1.5 years now, been at it. And it's starting to attract some people, and hopefully in the next year or two, or however long it takes, really, like, I don't care how long it takes, but I'd love to go fully online, do that whole, in the Bay Area, it's definitely like there's entrepreneurship here. There's a big entrepreneur culture, startup culture. And I would love to be a part of that, So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's beautiful. I love that you're already thinking and being very intentional about your manifestations, right? Like you're like, I don't care how long it takes to happen, but already hearing it in your voice, I can tell that it is going to happen, right? Like, because you're speaking it into existence. And I think when you're speaking about like people tapping into themselves, that's what when I hear when it's like, how do we hear the manifestations of ourselves that want to come out,
Hmm.
but that are often trapped or set up in boundaries because we don't believe in ourselves or we don't love ourselves. So I've been really exploring this notion of like self-love, right? Like how it's so important. So thank you so much for bringing that around and bringing that into the conversation. What are some of the
Yeah.
challenges of this work like that you're doing? Because I went to school and got an MFT, so I've done a little bit of psychology, not a lot around eating disorders, but I know that the work has to be a little bit challenging and probably even more so around COVID, right? Like I'm sure there's a lot of things coming up.
Yeah. Certainly with COVID, there can be the idea of food scarcity, and maybe not as much now, but certainly when it was first getting started, there were food shortages, and some grocery stores were just like raided basically, and that can be really triggering, this idea that you might not have food available. And then of course there's the whole stay at home, which you're bored, and and there's some stress in the air. There's the protests and stress, and you're home with the food, and it's right there, and you're maybe lonely. It's just a perfect combination for some emotional eating to spring up.
Are you all doing anything intentionally at your space or with your clients as a coach to support them with that? Or are there any challenges and celebrations? Because I don't even want to just go on a negative lens about it, that have came up from folks having to be a little bit more still and pause.
Yeah, I think one just a common thing I'm talking to people about is like, yes, there are a lot of things going on, and you're whatever you're struggling with, it's it's real. It is, and it's tough, and it's hard. And with a lot of people being home, there's an upside to that as well. And it is tough being at home, but there's also some positives to that. You got more time, perhaps. Maybe you have more choices if you to eat something different. So how can we like not get super caught up? I mean, all this negativity, but not so much negativity. How can we not see labels, right? Like if someone is thinking this is the worst thing for me, I'm trapped. That kind of thinking is going to lead to actions that, reinforce that thinking. Like, I'm trapped. I can't do anything. Fuck it. I'm just going to eat. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you are trapped in a way, but is that really true? Is that really, come on, you tell me, like, you don't have some more free time. Like, you can't like take a break from work. You can't like do some other stuff. Like, it is tough, but come on, like, you don't want to get caught in a black and white way of thinking about things. It's important that we can see like nuances and to drop this kind of either or thinking. And when you come from that kind of place, a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of space, a little bit of, easing, it can kind of open up a conversation on what you can do right now.
Yeah. I think what you're speaking on so much is like that mindset shift. And I remember when you sent your email introduction to me, you talked a lot about like, how you're really into supporting folks with shifting mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
So what is, because when I think about mindset and I think about intuition, I'm always like, like they're paired, like they're cousins, right? Like they're in the same family. Usually when my mindset is a little weird, then my intuition can guide me in a way that might not be real, right? Like sometimes it's made up, sometimes it's a part of my imagination, my insecurities. So when I read your bio and it said certified intuitive eating counselor, I was like, what does that mean? Like, what do you do? How do you make this happen? I just love the combination of intuition and eating, right? Like, because I think it is something that is natural, but I also think it's so connected to our mindset. So tell us a little bit about what does that title mean? How did you get certified? Because really here on BOI Meets Wellness, I'm really trying to give people the gems so that when they hear your story, not only do they connect with your work, but then maybe that flourishes for them to be of service as well, right? And they hear something that they can do.
Yeah, and you said that you were trying to get them, like your intention was to obviously help with wellness, but did you say, was it gyms?
Yeah, gyms.
Okay, yeah, got you getting out there, moving your body and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I meant gyms more like crystals, like
gems.
point moments. Yes, like words of encouragement. Yes. I love this though, right? Like this is what we call communication.
Yeah, I was like, what did I hear there?
No, we're not going back to those gyms yet. No, we gotta wait a little bit longer.
Got you, like gems of insight. I got you. Well, one thing that came up as I heard gyms, like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna roll with Evolve's intention. I'm gonna see if I can like speak to that. So pretending that your intentions were to get people, to move their bodies. That's how I kind of heard you say gyms. One big mindset change that a lot of people run up against is, if you're struggling with it's this idea that you have to exercise to be good, really. That's what it comes down to. You have to exercise to be good. That's a limiting mindset. It's a limiting mindset, really harmful. How it looks like for a lot of people is they have this that they have to exercise, like they have to compulsively exercise or count calories, or like there's these rules around health. There's these rules around health, right? You gotta run, you gotta lose weight, you gotta, and oftentimes people don't even know they have these rules, but they know that they're off. They know that they're freaking miserable around food. They know that they're thinking about food and like they can't stop thinking about food. And so there's these mindsets basically that in order to be healthy, you have to follow these rules. And if you follow these rules, you're good. And if you don't follow these rules, you're bad. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And so that's a really harmful mindset. It really harms people. For a long time, I was a personal trainer and I'd always get people hiring me. This was years ago. And and I didn't really know it back then. I wasn't aware of how people can really hate their bodies and really hate exercise and health and everything at an emotional level, because they always feel like they're they have to exercise. Like it's almost like a homework assignment, or their parents punish them with stuff like that, but they really don't like it. They really don't like exercising. They're doing it because they are kind of forced to. Their doctors shaming them into exercise, or going on a diet, but their inner self, their emotional self, their psychological self, their soul isn't engaged in the process. Their whole self is pushed to the sideline in the name of these rules and categories, and it creates just like this friction and this resentment to being healthy, to being well, thinking that you have to follow these rules, and they're not connected to you in any sort of way. And so the mindset is really about reconnecting to like your fundamental needs, values, and learning to love the process, like not just exercising and running on a treadmill because you have to, but because, maybe for mental health, like you do it, or you go on a walk instead, and you feel better. Like you feel better after a walk, or whatever. You could even play Frisbee, right? Like it's something like that. Yeah. So it's kind of like this is a intuitive thing. It's not like there's a science behind it, and it's growing more and more mainstream every day. But so that's my explanation of intuitive eating.
Nice, nice. So can you tell me a little bit for yourself about your own journey with this? Because that was the other thing that I found very powerful, was like your personal narrative and how you found your way to this particular work as an entrepreneur, right? Because there's, like you said, in the Bay Area, there's so many different things that we can do, right? Like you can do a service based, a client based, you can create a product. I mean, people are out here with OnlyFans pages, right? Like there's so many different
Yeah.
ways that you can go with the way that you want to build it. So how did you get to particularly working with folks in food?
Yeah, such a good question. It wasn't, it was kind of indirect, but long story short, I'm learning to embrace this narrative and the truth that I had a big hole in my heart. I just was missing some emotional connection. And yeah, just had a wound and tried to fill it with weed and food. Weight was never really a problem with me. Like if you had looked at me from the outside, you would have not known I was struggling. I didn't really know I was struggling either. I was really disconnected from myself, just, lost in my head. But I knew something was wrong. And I left society. I became a Zen monk for a year. So no electricity. There's a monastery. And, I was really into enlightenment. Like I was all about it. Like, let me meditate to get enlightened. So, that was it, period. Let me meditate to get enlightened. That was my game plan. Like, and then it didn't work. Long story short, I'm in this monastery and I'm still feeling like crap. And I'm not really connecting to the people there. I'm just off. I'm alone. I just feel awkward around people. I don't know how to like start up a conversation really, and then I feel bad and I turn to weed and food to kind of, I see in hindsight, to manage my feelings, try to meet some of my needs that I wasn't getting met. Anyways, eventually I'm like, this place isn't right for me. And I really liked mindfulness. Mindfulness is my saving grace. It is, yeah, mindfulness is just, whether I was born with an affinity to it or God given or whatever, I really like mindfulness. And so I knew I wanted to do something with mindfulness, maybe because I was introverted whatever, on the gentler side. I don't really know. But yeah.
When did you
yeah.
start meditating, if you don't mind me asking? When did you start that
Yeah,
practice?
that
Was that when you went away to the monastery, or did you do that on your own as well?
I had started in senior year of high school. I was a lifeguard, and I would sit on the lifeguard chair with like the perfect posture. Because
Wow.
yeah, I won like best lifeguard of the week or something like that. It was something silly, but yeah. And during that time on the meditation, I would be trying to I wouldn't close my eyes or anything. Like I was doing my lifeguard, but I was always like chanting or doing mantras and trying to sit like with this really upright spine. Seems so weird to think about it in hindsight. Like a lifeguard who's just om. Like not even leaning against the back of the chair too, like like kind of sitting up in the chair so that you're like like probably had my hands like in a mantra on my lap. I don't think I was like moving my mouth or anything, so I don't people wouldn't have heard that, although that would have been hilarious.
But that's a beautiful way to spend that time. I'm often thinking when I'm at a pool, what is that lifeguard doing, right? Because if there's no action, if there's no emergency, you're kind of just hanging out up there.
Yeah. It might have been like a hard job. I mean,
exactly, right?
Like definitely have worked in food service before, and that was tough in its own way. But the boredom, of a lifeguard. And it was at a community pool too. Like there wasn't, maybe if it was at like the ocean and there was a lot going on. Anyways, yeah, it was really boring.
So you turned to your mindfulness.
I started training,
which is
the
interesting
mind.
because people
right? Like, how can we use this time? Like, right? Like when we're stuck in a shit situation, like, can we make the best of it? That was one way I kind of, that mindset sort of how can I make the best of this? Like this is kind of shitty, but like maybe there's something I can do.
Definitely. So you went into that monastery and you went in to go within, right? Literally, like, okay, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go within. I need to figure out this internal stuff. And then you came out and it didn't work. I know that you were on that part of the story. So how do you still use that in the practice now? Or did you have to bring in some other practices in order to really get down to the root?
Oh, it was therapy, 100%. Therapy, 100%. I couldn't have done it on my own. 100%. No. So I go to grad school thinking I want to do a PhD in mindfulness, like psychology. I get in there because I just come from a really analytical, family. And so I was drawn to the PhD. I get in there and I realize, probably counseling is better. So I'm now trying to become a counselor in mindfulness. And there's a live therapy session, opportunity. So like the principal, or not the principal, but like the, I don't know, the main woman who is leading or chairing, she's like the department counseling chair. Anyway, she's doing a live session. And, so I decided to go up, like it's in front of the class. And so I go up, and I don't really remember much from that. It was pretty innocuous. Like it was fine. But then afterwards, she calls me into her office and says, "Hey, like you're switching into the PhD program, into the counseling program. And like, I just don't think like you're connected to your emotions. I don't think you're going to be able to help people in a deep way." And I'm like, oh shit. But she says, "Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. You can see a therapist, or you can stay in the PhD program." And I'm furious. I'm like, she's blackmailing me. Like,
oh wow.
I'm like, she's forcing me. Like, because on paper, like my grades were fine. Like on paper, she couldn't really like refuse. Like you're in the school program. Anyways, I was so pissed. But I start seeing a attachment therapist. I'm still seeing this therapist. Like, Yeah, and I might see him for the rest of my life. Like I take a perspective on therapy and coaching. And even before I met this therapist, I was hiring different coaches and stuff like that. So I've always been drawn to coaching. And my perspective is that whoever your role model is, they probably have a coach, like whether it's a famous sports player or, a business leader or just someone freaking cool. They probably have a coach. They probably have like some sort of coach, someone who plays a coaching role in their life or a counseling role in their life. I think everyone needs a person to lean on, a wise person who can be a steady support and give you some objective feedback. I think it's just so useful. And so basically, like through therapy, I finally start reconnecting to my basic needs, which I was not aware of, to my feelings, which I think meditation and mindfulness I was partly drawn to that because I think intuitively, like I needed to reconnect. I knew I needed to like feel my body more because I'm just like, I'm walking around like at that point, kind of like disembodied, like I don't really feel things. And
Almost
so
like a numb type of feeling.
yeah, I was numb. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, numb. Yeah. And then food and weed, of course, is like contributing to that numbing and just, so therapy, long story short, that's kind of how I reconnect to myself. Yeah.
That's
Like,
beautiful.
yeah.
I love the way that you brought that around, that, the person that you admire, your mentor, the person you're looking up to, also asks for help, right? Like, I think that in our
Mm,
society, when we think about heroes and we think about people who are powerful,
mm.
because the media chooses to enlighten us and show us them in this very singular way, we just see that person. But there's always a team, there's always a tribe, there's always a family, there's always a coach, right? Like with anyone who's successful. Even recently, I was watching the 30 for 30 with Michael Jordan,
Mm.
and he was talking about like all the folks that supported him through that process, right? But we only singular during that time seen Michael Jordan as this pretty much a
Yeah.
god of basketball, not realizing how many of his teammates, his coaches, his wife, his family members, his kids, right? Like so many people were giving him the support that he needed. So I think that
Yeah.
it's a thing that we definitely shape and put on masculine people, right?
Oh,
Like this independence, this need to not ask for help.
yeah.
So I think that it's so beautiful that you are working with people to really acknowledge that and to intuitively think about that.
Yeah. Guys, tough, right? Got to be tough and yeah, independent. And, yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. Like bottle everything up inside. It's not good at all. And it doesn't make you stronger. Like support and being able to lean on people and open up and not be judged, that makes you stronger. Like it 100% makes you stronger, like more resilient, like just recover from setbacks quicker. And one question too, I had one for you, Evolve. Where
Yeah.
do you find your support or coaching or whatever? What's your support?
Yeah, you know what? I have like really, really good friends and
Mm,
amazing family. I used to always
mm,
tell folks I grew up with like a bunch of cousins, like people grow up with siblings. We grew up in the same apartment building, same neighborhood, and I still call on them for a lot of support. But I also am currently looking for a therapist,
mm,
mainly because I feel like there's some things that I want to tap into around my family and my
mm,
childhood,
mm.
and I can't talk to my family about that. Like you can't talk to the
Yeah.
people that you might have a little bit of a disagreement about some things about the thing. So I really want to tap into a therapist, and I'm getting married next year. So it's so important to do that work before you jump into
Yeah.
a serious commitment. We're talking about money and family and building. So yeah, I tap into my community and I tap into the folks usually from the Boy Meets Wellness interviews, to be
Mm,
honest, Jared. Like I
for sure.
always go back to folks and ask them for resources
Yeah.
and just who they may know that might be able to support someone else. I feel like the biggest mentorship that we do have right now often is like our wellness, like podcasts, websites, right? For
Mhm.
folks who might be in that place that you were before you even went to that monastery, like that in between where you're still trying to figure out what kind of help
Yeah.
you need, but you just, maybe you hear this podcast and you hear Jared or you hear me, right? Like, and you hear this
Mhm.
moment, and that is the branch that you grab onto to take that
Mhm.
first leap into getting the help. So, but thank you
Mhm.
so much for asking that. And thanks for asking questions during the interview. A lot of folks they don't do that with me. I'm like, ask me something too. But
Yeah.
it's about y'all most of the time. It's
I
about
know,
y'all. So,
yeah.
so it's all good. It's all good. So tell me about your business. Tell me about your brand. Why did you particularly want to do it in the shape of a website? I see that you have like an ebook that folks can get on their own like custom journey around food. What made you want to do it in this particular way? And where are you taking it? And probably in the next like 6 months, are you going to be seeing like one-on-one clients? Are you doing more group stuff? Tell me about the brand.
Yeah, the brand is me, and I'd say my evolution. It's kind of interesting. Like, I think when I started the business, it was kind of a logical conclusion. Like, I was finishing up counseling, and I knew I didn't want to work for the rest of my career in a clinic. I'm currently at a eating disorder outpatient clinic, but I knew, like, okay, this isn't what I ultimately want. Just money wise, like, that was one thing. And so I kind of put two and two together, and it was like, okay, like private practice, right? So, okay, how do I do that? That question, how do I start a private practice, kind of has been a gateway for personal growth for me. They say business can be a personal growth endeavor, and that's been 100% the case for me. I think in the beginning, I tried to, I was, I don't think I was coming from a place of service, to be honest. Like, I was kind of like, okay, how do I make money? And the
That's
energy is,
real. That's
yeah,
real.
like, yeah, you're like, and but fortunately, I love writing. Like, I'm a writer. I'm a writer. I'm a meditator. I kind of know that about myself, and so I found a great coach again. Someone who would kind of, what I loved about this coach was that I don't want to get too off topic here, but he showed me his analytics. He showed me, hey, it took me 20,000 freaking blog posts before I, you know, and he showed me the website traffic and how long it took, and I love the length. He really shared with me the long-term perspective. And so I was like, you know what? Whether, like I shared at the beginning of the podcast, like and he was doing blogging and I was a writer. And so I just hopped on board. I started writing. And, that's like a purification process. Like, trying to share my writings and my journey and what I was studying with people. It's a purification process, because you get a feel for what resonates, what doesn't resonate. Like, you just get a feel for what's connecting with other people, and what truly is bringing you closer to your goal. And through a lot of introspection and awareness, and continuing with therapy and examining my motives, it's a purification process, because I start to see, like, the more I care, not about me, but about my authenticity, the more I care about speaking to the heart of the person that I am trying to speak to, the more, like, I come from that place, the more, like, people are responding to me, the more, like, the more joy I have, the more email signups, the more conversations I'm having, and the more I'm learning too. In the sense, like, I would get clients in the beginning, and I'm still, like, just starting to get a client flow going, like, people who are listening to me and say, hey, like, you're the emotional eating dude. Like, okay, like, like, how does that go? So I maybe would get like one client in the very beginning. We got to a point with his binge eating where we'd done some good work, but I didn't know, like, how to help him further. I kind of, I think that's when I officially got my certification in intuitive eating, was just like, hey, I got to go deeper. I got to, like, be able to what am I missing? Like, how can I really like shift this guy who's been binge eating for like 40 years? How can we really get over it? Yeah, get over it. And not right away. It's not a right away. It might be 6 months or a year, or it's not like I'm not. Yeah, but how can we make really significant progress? And so I think what has given me a lot of joy lately is like working at the eating disorder. I've been there since the beginning of this year, and so I'm now I'm working there. I'm immersing myself. That's what I'm kind of going for. I'm like immersing myself and really becoming a master of this emotional eating healing. And it gives me a lot of joy these days. Like, I think whenever you get a skill and you kind of get better at it, and it gives me a lot of joy. Like,
That's beautiful. That's hella beautiful.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just like, in terms of where I'll be in 6 months, like, I got my things down. I just keep blogging, keep writing. Seems like more and more people are signing up. I keep emailing my list, the people in the community. I try to email them when a new blog article comes out. And in the beginning, when I was writing the blog articles, I was doing it very formal. Like, but I've learned to I got to speak to the person. I got to help the person. I got to help the person reading, like, with my words. Can my words unlock stuff for them? And yeah, so I just keep sharing that stuff. And then occasionally I'll say, hey, here's a free session offer. And then maybe a couple people are interested. And so that's all I'm doing. I imagine I'll keep doing that. It seems pretty simple, I'll keep doing that for the next 6 months. I'll keep doing that for the next, I don't know, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah. You're just building it. Yeah, you're building it.
Yeah.
I really like that you're talking about this sense of long game.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot here on the podcast about being an entrepreneur. A lot of folks see the wins, right? Like, people see, when you drop a book, or I recently dropped a clothing line, and everybody's like, oh, yo, that's so cool. And people probably don't know the headaches I had with the website, how I had to wait for the actual domain name to really be launched, because I launched it on another platform. I had to switch it over. Just all this stuff that goes into the work behind it, right?
Yeah.
Like the complicatedness. People only see the wins. And I think that it's so powerful for us as entrepreneurs to have our goals set in mind, and that they not all be attached to other people's outlook on our success, right? So some of my goals are just about me feeling good about the work, right? Like me putting out something and I'm hearing my voice and I'm like, oh, you're not as nervous, or you were more prepared this time. Like, these little things for me are larger goals than sometimes even the amount of people that actually listen to the podcast, because I think it's what you're talking about. It makes you, it's a healing practice to create your own brand, because it really makes you investigate and look at yourself and look at the way that you're judging yourself and judging your work, right?
Totally. And you bring up such a good point too. I love your freaking energy. Like, whatever you're bringing to this conversation, I freaking love it. So
I try to come
in a previous podcast, I'm not picking it up. I'm picking up whatever, just good shit.
I'm trying to send that your way, Jared. That is my goal every day.
Yeah. And I think that's why I love business as a personal growth thing. Your own thing with BOI Meets Wellness is kind of, you're going through this introspection process, and you're becoming a more calm, secure person. And you're able to, you are becoming at a very fundamental level, you are becoming the person that you want to be, the person with the lifestyle that you want to be. You spoke earlier, and I really believe this as well, manifestation and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying The Secret, or if you just have a vision board, but I think what you're doing and what I'm doing too is this complex, gritty. There's a lot of shit that goes on in the background, but with some introspection and honesty and courage, we're bringing out our best selves and attracting the right energy, the right people, the right circumstances, and the kind of the stuff we ideally want in our lives. And that's why I think this whole business thing is like it's like a spiritual journey or whatever. It's like, it's a trip.
That is so true. That is so true. So
Yeah.
before we jump into our last segment, which is called Boy Talk and Hop, it's a little bit of our fun section where I'll just ask you like some fill in the blank stuff. I have a couple more questions for you. My first question for you is, as a healer that is healing themselves, right? Because that's what I hear you
Yeah.
saying. Like
Yeah.
you're on this constant journey of healing yourself. What advice would you give to anyone else who's stepping into the world of eating disorders? That might be, you know, a future therapist or someone who's healing from that abuse
Mm.
or misfortune, right? The feeling of doubt, right? But wanting to step in to be a healer. What advice would you give them?
Yeah. A healer for eating disorders. The hands down, the best thing I think is that you can really do powerful, transformative work in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, within a year, I mean, it's a year, but like a person who's struggling with binge eating their whole life, like they can bring that down significantly. I'm not saying they're going to stop entirely, but they can go from like 30 times a month to 3 times a month, or something like that, or 2 times a month, or within like 6
More
months
like
to a
harm
year.
reduction in a way.
Yeah, it's not overnight, and it's kind of, but like, so with food, I just think, we eating disorders are horrible. They really steal life. They steal a lot of life, and they will. It's like they're not going away. Like, in the sense that people die from them, but people live with them their entire lives, and it just saps so much time, so much mental thought, like so much potential is lost. But I think as just a human being, like we can kind of intuit that food is not meant to be this freaking difficult. And the good news is that it's not. Like, it's not meant to be that difficult. So because it's just like not meant to be that difficult, like just the way of the universe, or you can make a lot of healing progress. I mean, you really can. Yeah, like the it's just an exciting field because it's so measurable. Like, you can clearly see if you're struggling from binge eating or emotional eating, like you can very clearly see like, oh, this went down a lot. Like, you know,
I see why you like this, because you're the analytical side. I remember you speaking about that earlier. So you get the numbers, you get the
yeah.
measurement, you get that
Hmm.
feedback very quickly, which is interesting, because some therapy models are definitely built more for a long-term
Yeah.
type of measurement, right? But
Yeah.
I think that this is very
Measurable.
measurable and interesting to
Yeah.
think about with folks who might want to do it, right? Like if you're looking for a long-term game type of healing, maybe this is not something you want to do, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking for
Yeah.
something that's more measurable and that you can see a little bit quicker, this can be really powerful. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll add on to that too, because this long-term work is some of the stuff that I'm just starting to do. But, I'm a white male, pretty privileged, and I am kind of learning more and more about body image and the cultural stuff that is going here. Like, these beliefs about body image, I think to heal from binge eating and like the overeating, like you can make rapid progress on that. But in terms of a long-term field, like body image problems, which is related to what I'm doing, but not quite, that can be long-term. There's just like our culture is not, it is very, we'll say, fat discriminatory. It's bigger size is discriminatory. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of discrimination going on. I talked to a woman at the eating disorder clinic yesterday, and we were in the kitchen, and she said, I was like, how's your day? And she's like, I feel fat. And I asked her, like, well, I kind of joked with her. We have this little joke at the eating disorder place that feeling fat isn't a feeling. Anyway, so I kind of joked with her, but then I kind of got serious and like, so what do you mean by that? Like, what does fat mean to you? I forget what I answered, exactly what I asked, but I remember her answer, and her answer was, I feel that, or fat means to me that I need to lose weight to get respect. Like she said, I need to lose weight to get respect. That's what I believe. These beliefs, I need to lose weight to get respect, or to be loved, or to be worthy, kind of like what I said earlier, I need to be healthy to be good. These beliefs are insidious. They are like the root of all evil kind of thing. And I think they're demons that we just have to fight for the rest of our life. Like, we live in a culture that has these poisons in the culture. Like, we can't just, and we're all part of the culture. Like, so that means kind of like we all have these poisons that are going to surface every now and then, or energies that we're going to brush up against. And I think that can be some really rewarding long-term work.
Thank you for sharing that, Jared, and wrapping that around, because I think, when people see this, and I'm very interested, I always come up with the titles after I listen to the episode a second time, but I think it's so important for people to really think about fat phobia, because I think a lot of folks think when they think healthy, they automatically think like not fat, right? Like not these things that are often images of people that are not their true selves. Like, often the images we even see on Instagram and in social media, they're enhanced images. These are not the actual lives of people, right? Like, so much is based off of an imagination that is not true. So Jared, can you tell our audience, for me, how can they get connected to your work? Because I know folks are going to want to know, like, how can they meet you? How can they set up a session? Where do they find you on social media? Please let folks know how to get this work.
Yeah, I mean, just staying true to myself, I just blog pretty much, eatingenlightenment.com, /blog. I do have a podcast as well, Eating Enlightenment. But I am more passionate about the writing aspect. I think that's probably the best place. Just my website, eatingenlightenment.com. Yeah, that's the best place.
Okay, great.
I'm on social media too, but I think just eatingenlightenment.com is the, I think if you want to join the email list, great. I send you a bunch of free guides, and then I just send a couple emails out couple times a week. Yeah, that's a good place. Read some articles. Yeah.
I'll be sure to put that in the show notes so that it makes it really easy for folks to click over. I'll be including the blog and your podcast, so folks can check that out as well. And I look forward to hopefully potentially being on your podcast in the near future as well. So I want us to wrap up this segment and jump into Boy Talk and Hop. So just get, if you needed, Jared, just stretch your body out a little bit, move the brain, get the analytical side out, because this is a little bit more fun. It could be more fun, but I think it's more intimate, right? Because it's like, what comes to your mind when you think of these words first? Okay. So I'm going to give you a statement, and then you're just going to fill it in with the blank. So for example, I could say my favorite movie is, and you would say, I don't know. If you were me, you'd probably say Wizard of Oz, because I love that movie.
I would say Inception.
Okay, Inception. There we go. We go.
See my sci-fi nerd side.
Okay, great. So this is Boy Talking Hop. My first question for you is, music is?
Awesome.
What's your favorite? Who's your favorite artist?
Oh man, probably Queen. I just did some karaoke to Queen the other day. Don't Stop Me Now.
Nice.
I got a good voice, and that song is awesome. Don't stop me now.
Yeah,
I was able to hit all the high notes. I didn't quite hit it there. I didn't quite go for it here, but anyways, yeah, karaoke is awesome. Music is awesome.
Money is?
What's the word? I feel it inside. It's like both, I guess. That's not quite what I want to say, but like it. My gut instinct is like, money's the root of all evil, blah, 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 money's bad. But a real part of me too is like, no, like money can amplify good. I don't know that word. Sorry, I know it's one word. Both, I guess, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Positive and negative, or.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, right? Yin and yang, yin and yang.
Yeah, yin and yeah.
Okay, great. I like that. What is your favorite book? My favorite book is?
Favorite book is, what's coming to mind? My mind is blank right now. trying to just like speak off the top of my head. My mind is still blank. Bhagavad Gita. There we go. That came to me. Bhagavad Gita.
Nice. Who's the author of that one?
It's an ancient spiritual text. It's from the Hindu religion. So it's kind of like the Hindu Bible. I don't think it has like an official author. It's just kind of like, a poem or something like that.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
It actually is a poem. By the way, I know you dig poetry. It's an ancient poem, the Hindu poem. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look that up after this. I do love a good.
I hear like famous poets like what was his name, Walden and Gandhi and Emerson. They'll like go to the Bhagavad Gita and be like, "This is a good poem."
That's dope. That's dope. Wellness is
energy.
Ashe.
Yeah, energy. It is good energy.
Love is
warm. Makes the world go round.
My favorite food is
avocados or peanut butter.
Nice. I love peanut butter as well.
Yeah, it's so good. I probably have like a peanut butter sandwich like every day. Peanut butter gets a bad rap, but I recently saw on Joe Rogan, this guy, he compared basically the equivalent of like a lean steak with peanut butter, just like a couple pieces of like bread. I think he was doing whole wheat bread, but anyways, peanut butter, couple slices of whole wheat. It was like the equivalent of like a lean steak, and it fills you up and, makes you feel good. Anyways, so yeah, peanut butter. Go peanut butter. Go peanut butter.
Yeah. If you could spend a day with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and what would you do?
That's a good one. Dead or alive. I mean, I'm kind of Buddhist. I mean, kind of, sort of Buddhist.
Sort of Buddhist.
If Buddha could talk, English, I can understand him. I think that'd be pretty dope. Pretty awesome to go talk with the Buddha and, get some of that mojo.
That would be pretty powerful. Or if like you just all of a sudden knew that language, like either way, this is an amazing movie ready to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And last but never least, Jared is.
Let's see. I'll go with weird. Yeah. I think I'm kind of weird, but I'm learning to love myself for my weirdness. So, weird in my own way.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jared, for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much. I think that the work that you're doing is going to be transformational. I cannot wait for folks to not only hear this interview, but to just be able to tap in with you and see your process. I really appreciate that you're a healer that's doing the healing work. I think that so many of us try to come from vessels that are half full, maybe almost full, when we need to come from an overflowing cup. So I really appreciate that you're like showing that to the world.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for having me on Evolve.
No problem.
I'm Jared, and I'm born obviously incredible.
Thanks for listening to BOI Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at BOI Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible.